Hey guys, Balkan Architect here, and we're continuing on our course where we're going to be taking a simple project and taking it all the way through to the finalized version. And at the last week's course, I've stopped over here, so we had some sort of a basic conceptual design for our sketch layout for our building, and a floor plan and a 3D view, but it looks something like this. It was basic, something that you can show to your client and they can say do they like it or not. You can make some changes as far as the whole layout goes, but now it's time to take it to a whole new level. So in this course, we're going to be taking it to this. So as you can see over here, we've done all of the walls, so all of the wall finishes are perfect, and here we can see all of the wrapping layers that are wrapping around the wall. So here we have a nice finish here on the window. Also, we have a different floor finish. So if we go over here, as you can see, now we have one floor finish for the kitchen area, a separate one for the rest of the house, and we have another exterior floor finish. And you can see that over here as well. Also, we talk how to figure out these wall details and all of that stuff, how to make it look nice. And also we play around with roofs a bit. So I've created just a mock section over here. So as you can see over here, we played around. Here we have those floors. We have our foundations that we have created, and all of the floors all of the roof layers are set to what they should be. Okay, so that's what we're going to be going over in this week's course. Now let's get started by adding some detail to our exterior wall. So here we have our exterior wall, and at the moment it's just the basic wall, generic 300mm, and let's get started there. So what I'm going to do is go here into Edit Type, and once you're in the Type Properties dialog, here I'm going to duplicate this existing wall. So I'm going to call it exterior wall. Let's call it. So let's call it exterior wall, and it's going to be around 37 centimeters. So we can just call it 37. Hit OK, and there we go. We've got our new type. Now, if we go into structure, you're going to notice that it's just copied the basic, the only layer that we had in the previous one. So here it says core boundary, and in the middle we have our structure wall layer. So this is going to be the structural layer. Now, in this case, I'm going to use a 20 centimeter construction block for this. So I'm just going to change the thickness to 20, and for the material, instead of default, I'm going to go here and search for a material. So now let's see what we have. Do we have some masonry units or something like that? Let's see what we have. Okay, we've got just common brick. Yeah, we have those regular bricks. Let's see what else. Yeah, so we have these concrete masonry blocks. So I'm just going to use this one for our structural element, or our structural layer of the wall. So you just need to load it in over here. Once you find it over here down in the libraries, you just hit this little arrow, load it in, and then you can hit apply. Hit OK, and there we go. We have that structural layer. Moving on, let's add some more layers. So what you do is go here to insert, just click again, and there we go. We have another layer. Now in this case, this is not going to be a structural layer. We need to have some thermal insulation, and for that, let's create a thermal insulation wall layer. So let's just find here thermal or air layer. So it can be either some sort of insulation, or it can be just an air layer, just a gap in the wall. So in this case, I'm going to use some insulation material, but first for the thickness, let's go with 15 centimeters. For example, in my country, that's like the minimum rule. That's what most people use. So let's go with that. Also, here we have this structural material option where we can check it. So in this case, our thermal layer is not structural, so we're just not going to check that. Also, we have this wraps option. So does this material wrap around the main material? So in this case, will this thermal material wrap around our masonry units? And in some cases, at the end of the wall or something like that, you will have an option where you want to wrap this wall. So I firmly suggest you check this if possible. But first, of course, let's add the material, and before we do even that, let's move it up outside of the core boundary, because this is not a core layer. So I'm just going to go here up, and there we go. Now we have this wraps option, so I can finally check it. And now let's add our material. So I'm going to search for some insulation. Let's see what we have. We've got some rigid insulation, we've got some exterior insulation. Yeah, let's see, what else do we have? Polystyrene. Yeah, we can go with some of these foam layers. Usually this is what's used for this type of residential building, at least in my area. So I'm just going to choose that one, hit apply. Also, when you choose here for the material, you can either find it here if it's loaded in, or just go here to libraries, search for it, and then load it in. So I'm going to go with this foam, hit apply, okay, and there we go. We've got our foam layer. Moving on, we have to have some sort of a interior and exterior finish, and here, as you can see, it says exterior side on top and interior side on bottom. That just means that our thermal layer is going to be on the exterior, and let's add the exterior finishing material. So I'm going to go here to insert new material, and the function on this one will be a finish material. So let's go with finish 1, that's the exterior finish. And for this one, for the thickness, I'm just going to go with 1 centimeter. I don't need anything more. And also it will wrap along with the thermal layer around the structural layer. And if this doesn't make too much sense at the moment, don't worry. I'm going to be demonstrating that a bit later once we finish layering this wall. Okay, so we've got our finish material, and let's just search for what we can use. I prefer using gypsum wallboard for all of my finishes, just because it's a nice white finish material. So let's go with that one. Okay, we have that. Now let's go here to the bottom, go to insert, and we have a new layer over here, and let's just bring it down so it's oops, I deleted it. So insert and then move it down so it's here on the interior side, outside of the core boundary. So the core boundary basically separates your structural material from all of your other materials. Again, the thickness is going to be 1 centimeter. It is going to wrap around the main core boundary. And for the type here, for the function, let's go with finish. And here for our we can go finish 1, yeah, it's the only finish. And here for our for the material, just go with gypsum wallboard. And there we go. Now here you're also going to notice that we have some options, just because all of these materials, for example, if I go here in the masonry unit, you have these identity materials, appearance, physical options, thermal options. So there's a lot of information already within the material. So once the material is loaded in here, Revit will calculate the resistance, the thermal mass, the total thickness. In this case, it's 37 centimeters. And also you can preview this, so just go here to preview, and there we go. That's basically our wall. These green lines represent the core boundary, and inside of that is the main material, and on the outside we have our insulation, and we have the finish on both sides. Now I'm just going to hit OK, OK again, and there we go. It immediately inserted that layer over here. Now you're going to notice that this wall is a bit thicker, but that's it. That's because we need to change this to fine, just so we can see our wall better. Okay, there we go. Now you may notice that this wall is now on the wrong side, so I need to flip it to the right side. Okay, now it is on the right side, so there we go. We've got this insulation layer, and then we have our main core. Now I like my core boundary to be matched up with the grid line, just because your grid line really should go through your structural core. So what I suggest you do is you go with AL or align. you just type in AL and then try to find the structural, the center of our core. So you just hover over the wall, you hit tab once, it allows you to pick that. So let's go again, hit tab once, and then we can lock it in. There we go. Now this wall is on the outside. Now this doesn't look really that well, even if we turn off these thin lines. When I zoom in, okay, it looks a bit better, but still doesn't really look that nice. I'm not really that happy with this wall. It looks just a bit better than this one with an additional layer, but that's it. So what I like to do in these cases is I like to add some hatches, something like that, just to make it look more realistic, and you need to have hatches because you need to represent the material being used over here. So what I suggest you do is you select that wall and go into edit type again, and now we're going to be making some changes. Go to structure, and for our core boundary, let's go here and open up our material. Now for our material, here we have some graphics, and basically here we have an option to set up how we want to represent visually our wall. So here for the surface pattern, I'm not going to bother too much with that because this doesn't really have any surface patterns, because it's always hidden away behind insulation or behind some finish material. But for the cut pattern, it's very important. And here, if you're using Revit 2019 or any newer versions, you will have an option of having to set two basically patterns, one for the foreground and one for the background. What this allows you to do is to have a regular pattern like some of these for your foreground, and then you can use a solid pattern with a color for the background. So for the background, I always go with the solid fill, and in this case this might be a bit too gray, at least in my opinion, so I like to go with this light gray. And for our foreground, make sure you set this to black for the color. And for the pattern, let's use something that represents a block. Usually it's going to be vertical lines, so I'm going to go with the regular vertical lines. Let's just see what that looks like in the model. So hit apply, okay, okay again, apply, okay. There we go. It's just the hatch isn't represented that well. Let's see if we go into edit type. Yeah, I think the vertical lines are running well vertically, so we can go into structure, back into masonry, and let's see what else can we place that's going to be a bit more visible. Let's try a cross hatch. Let's see what that looks like. Hit apply, okay, apply, okay. There we go, looks a lot better. So it looks like those separations between our actual blocks, so I really prefer this look. Also, let's go back into edit type, let's go here into structure, and for our thermal air layer, I'm just going to go into the material and let's make some changes over here. Now for the foreground layer or foreground pattern, I'm not going to use anything because we're going to be actually placing in the batting line that's usually used for representation of insulation and these types of walls. But for the background, I want to change it to some color that's going to represent the actual insulation, and usually you use either yellow or orange color to represent something like this. So I'm just going to find this yellow orangish color, something like this, hit OK, and then for the pattern, let's go with this, hit OK, apply, OK, OK, apply, OK. And let's see, there we go. So it looks a lot more interesting. We have some insulation over here, and here we have our main wall material or our main structural material. Now to change that, let's do the ones that are actually going to be overlapping with the grid lines, because those are the ones that are tricky to set up. So you just go here to this wall, go and change it from the generic one to our, let's see, exterior wall 37. Okay, so I'm just going to remove the constraints now. Okay, let's see, it's on the wrong side again, so you just need to find these little arrows, and if you can't see it, let's turn on thin lines. There we go. So these two arrows, they're usually in the middle of your wall, so just zoom in the middle and find them, and then you switch the position of the wall to the other side. Okay, looks good. maybe turn on 10 lines, yeah, and let's just align it to the grid in the center of the core or of our structural material. So just go AL for align, select this, then hit tab, click here, and lock it in place. There we go. So this wall is now in place, and the last two that are like this are this one as well as this one. Now here you might be thinking, well, why this is a curtain wall, it's not an actual wall. But if we go into 3D, we'll wait for a second for it to load in. There we go. Let's just switch this to hidden line, orbit around. Yeah, so here we have that curtain wall, but all around it we have a regular wall. So I need to align that wall, and I need to change its actual all of the layers. So let's go back to floor plan, select that wall, hold the control key to add to selection, select this wall as well, and let's change it to our 37. And again, let's just flip it to the other side, remove constraints, and align it in place to the grid line, and here to the center of the core, lock it in place. There we go. And for this one, again, flip it to the other side and go to align. Oh, it's actually aligned in the correct place. That's good. Okay, so we have those walls, and now we can do the rest of the exterior walls because it's going to go a lot easier. You just have to select all of them just like this, hold the control key, and just keep adding to selection. And I think I've got all of them. Okay, so these are a bit easier because they don't have to be aligned with the grid line. So just go over here in our properties and go to wall 37. And I think for most of them, or yeah, even for all of them, we have to flip it to the other side. So let's flip, flip. It's a bit tricky once you create one wall and then you have to flip all of them, but yeah, that's usually how it goes. Okay, so let's go with this one as well, and this little one. And just remove constraints if you get any problems. Now here, as you can see, now we're having problems. If I go to thin lines, this wall is kind of attaching weirdly, but don't worry. Once you change the walls, you're bound to have some changes in the design, and we're going to be fixing those a bit later on. Let's just see, have we flipped all of them? Yes, we have. Okay, moving on, let's do our interior walls. Now for the interior walls, we're actually going to have two types of interior walls. We're going to have a bearing interior wall as well as the regular like separation interior wall. So the bearing walls are this one and this one over here. As you can notice, they're running alongside of these grid lines, so you have to actually make them a bit thicker. They have to match the structural layer of this wall, but for the rest we can use just brick and some gypsum wall board for the exterior. And also, just when I was zooming in, I've noticed here we have a problem, so just need to align this, AL for align, and hit tab once, and there we go, we can lock this in place. Okay, that looks good. So now let's create a new layer for this. Now let's do first the structural ones, and I'm just going to start off with this wall. So just go here into wall, or select one of these, for example select this one, switch it to the 37 one, go into edit type, and then hit duplicate. Now let's call this one something else. So this one is going to be 20 centimeters plus 1 centimeter on each side for the finish. So it's going to be 22 centimeters. So let's just call it interior wall 22. Hit OK, go here into edit. Now because we have already set up these layers, we just need to select the thermal layer and remove it by hitting delete. And there we go, the rest of it is, well, it's fine. So you just hit OK, and there we go, we have already done this. So once you set up one thing in Revit, usually it kind of sets everything else up. So you just hit OK again, and there we go, it's finished. It's got its finished material, it's got its main material, and that's pretty much it. So we just need to set it over here as well. So just switch to that 22 interior. Let's find it. There we go, interior wall 22. There we go. And in some cases it won't match, so you can just if it doesn't match, just detach it and then realign it, but in this case it's actually matching, so I don't have to do that. Or you can just see if it doesn't match with the grid line, then you have to align it. So just go align, find your grid line, and then align it to the center of this wall and lock it in place. But there we go, this is now matching to this, so everything seems to look right. Okay, so we've got that wall, and let's just do the small wall over here. Now this can be just brick wall with some gypsum wallboard, and I usually like to use brick instead of one of those just gypsum wallboard construction walls, because it's just better. It's a bit more expensive, but it works a lot better. So for those walls, I'm just going to select it, go again to our, now in this case, interior 22, go into edit type, duplicate, and usually bricks are 12 centimeters plus 1 on each side for the finishing material, so that makes it 14. So that's the 14 centimeter one, and here just change the main material to 12 centimeters, and let's change it, instead of masonry unit, let's see, I'm just going to go over here down to libraries, and also if you can't find these, you can use this button. So this button opens and closes up the libraries. Let's open this up a bit. Let's see what we have for masonry, and we can just use common brick. I think that will work. It won't be visible, so it doesn't really matter. So okay, it's already loaded in, so let's just search for brick. There we go, common brick. Hit OK. Now in this case, this brick material already has this hatch, and I don't really like it that much. So what I'm going to do is go here into edit. Let's see, so it's using this as the finish, so let's just switch that to white. Okay, and here for the foreground, we can leave this hatch as is, or maybe if you want to change it, you can change it. I might, yeah, let's go with the diagonal up, who cares. And here for the color, let's do that reddish grayish color. Maybe that will look better, something like this. There we go. Hit OK, apply, OK, OK again, OK, and let's see what that looks like. Yeah, oh, what I missed is here in structure, back to brick, and here I didn't set up the pattern, so I need to set it to solid fill, hit OK, apply, OK, OK again, apply, and OK. There we go, it looks rather nice. So now you can just select all of these, all of the rest of the walls, and just change the material. So I think I've got all of them, and then you go here, and instead of the basic wall, let's go to our interior 14. And there we go, it looks a lot better now. Now, in some cases, we will have to fix something up as over here, so it looks a bit weird, so you can just detach it and then use the align tool to align the finishing materials. Just if you can't pick the edge, just use tab key, and now we can pick it, lock it in place, and then just adjust this. There we go. And as you can see, the finished material is running all the way on the outside, and these structural materials are going and connecting to each other. Now in this case, we need to move this furniture a little bit, so let's use the MAV for move, and let's move this into place here, and then here we can extend it a little bit. Same thing with this one probably, yeah. So I'm just going to select it, MAV, move it here in place, and just adjust it like that. Okay, there we go, we have this one, MAV, but you get the point, you just adjust all of these in place, and also other elements like this. So if any of the furniture doesn't align actually in the right place, you have to realign it. There we go. Now let's take a look at some of these wall joins and wall connections. So if I zoom in over here, you're going to notice that Revit does a pretty good job of connecting all of these wall layers. So here we have two different walls, two separate walls, and this one is the thicker structural one, this one's the thinner one, the separation wall. And here we can notice that Revit recognized and connected the finishing materials of both walls, so it actually looks good. But sometimes Revit unfortunately messes up, and that's where you have to do some manual work. So for example, over here, well, I wouldn't call it a Revit mess up, it's just something that's should be probably done a bit different. So if we look at this wall join over here, it's natural that this wall should probably go all the way through, and then this wall should stop over here. But in this case, because this is a structural wall, let's say we want to have a bit more of that structural wall, and we would probably ignore the fact that here we have this continuous wall and this one is only ending up over here. So if we want this wall to go all the way through and to connect really good, what we need to do is first we need to go here to Modify tab, and here you have these wall joins option. So I can come over here, and as you can see, when I go over any wall join, it kind of highlights with this rectangle, and it allows us to change the wall joint. So if I just come over here and click, we have some options over here. So what I'm going to do is just click here on Disallow Join. This basically kind of disconnected these two walls. So I can either hit Escape key or go here to the Modify tool, and now we can continue working. So what I'm going to do here is just extend this wall all the way to the end. Then I'm going to use the Split Element tool, for which I'm going to use the shortcut SL. You can also use this button over here, and then I'm just going to split this this wall over here. I'm going to select this end, connect it over here, and this end, and connect it over here. Now here you might notice that we have a problem. This end should be covered in that gypsum wallboard, and it isn't. The structural material is here on the edge, and that would probably not look very good with the actual building. So what we need to do is we need to kind of wrap this up with this material. Now you may remember that we checked that wraps option when we were setting up all of the wall layers. So what I'm going to do now is just select this wall, go here into the Edit Type dialog, and open up the Structure dialog. Here we have some options, and as you can see here at ends we have default wrapping, and here at ends you can check one of these. Now because this is an interior wall and basically has the same material, same finish material on each side, you can pretty much use any of these. But if you want the exterior finish material to wrap, then you would use exterior, and if you want the interior finish material to wrap, then you would use interior. So in this case I'm just going to go perhaps with exterior, doesn't really matter, hit OK, hit apply, hit OK again, and there we go. As you can see, it kind of closed that off. Now to show you another example of this, as you can see over here we have this wall that's kind of ending up without any finishing material on this side, and we will fix that in pretty much the same manner. So you just select that wall, go into Edit Type, go here into Edit, and again here we're going to check maybe interior this time, just to show you that it works basically the same way. Hit apply, OK, and there you go. It kind of closes it off, and it puts that gypsum wallboard even here on the end, which is how it should be. Another place where you would maybe want to play around with detailing with these walls is around your windows. So here, as you can see, we've got this window, and the material, the window basically cuts through the wall straight through. But sometimes you want to have maybe something a bit different. So for example, in this case, you might want to have this this material over here, this basically this gypsum wallboard wrapping around the end of this wall, so here we don't see this ugly structural material. So to fix that, you would select this wall, you would go here into Edit Type, and we have pretty much the same options. So if you go here to Structure, find your material, and here default wrapping, here we have at inserts. Inserts basically means all of the openings, so that means doors and windows. So here you can check maybe interior. In this case, if you check interior and click OK, let's wait for a second, hit apply, OK, and there we go. As you can see, this is now wrapping all the way around and going to this point. Now you might be thinking, why did it stop over here at this point? Well, that's because when you turn on this wraps option, it's basically going to wrap the material up to the center line of the wall. In this case, the center line of the wall is going over here. So if we select the wall, you can see here we have this drag and wall, that's the center line, so it's going over here. here maybe we can change the location line and maybe set it to core center line. Hit apply. So now if we select it, it's over there, but still our wrapping material is going to go to the center of the wall. So in order to fix that, maybe we want to close off this as well, this part here with the insulation. So for that, we would select this wall, go here into edit type, go into edit, and then maybe we can do both. So both interior and exterior. So do both, hit OK, wait for a second, hit apply, OK, and there we go. Now you might notice something a bit weird, odd. Here it kind of wrapped, as you can see, this this insulation material around. Now because the insulation material is very thick and the center line of the wall is really close to the place where this insulation material is at, it kind of looks, well, it looks really weird. So I don't really like this. So how are we going to fix that? I like the fact that this is wrapping around the finishing material, the gypsum wallboard, but I don't like the fact that our insulation material is wrapping. Well, that can be easily fixed. What you need to do is you need to just select the wall, go into edit type, go here into edit, and here we can just find our thermal air layer, so that's this one, and just uncheck wraps. So we've unchecked the option for this one to wrap around our window. So if I just go OK, apply, OK, and there we go. So this is now going completely straight, and this one is wrapping all around. So that looks really good. And now we can see that pretty much at all of our windows. If we go over here, yeah, it's doing the same thing. Now in this case, here with this wall, you can do the same thing if you want your gypsum wallboard to be on the interior side of this door. Now usually with doors you have that door frame, so it might not be necessary, but if you want to, if you prefer to, you can do the same thing. So you can select it, go here into edit type, go into edit for the structure, and here we can wrap it either interior, exterior, or both. Hit OK, hit apply, OK, and there we go. Now we have that closed off end of this wall. And just to top it off all off, let's talk about the insulation batting line in the walls. So I mentioned when we were setting up wall layers that we don't really need any hatch here on this insulation material. That's because we need to add that insulation batting line. So to create that, you need to go here to your Annotate tab, and here in the Detail panel, you have your insulation. So this is the insulation batting line. It looks like this. That's the default architectural representation of insulation. So to create this line, you just click here and you can use the tool. Now here we have some options, and in this case, what I suggest you do first is you measure the your wall, or that layer. So in this case it's 15 centimeters. So when you go here to insulation, make sure that here for width you type in 15, and here I'm just going to go from center to far side, and that's basically going to allow me not to if it was centered, it would do something like this, but the problem is I don't know where the center of this is. We don't have anything to kind of attach it to, so I'm going to mess it up. So what you do is just go here to far side, and then you go just from one side all the way to the other, you click, and then here you get these two locking signs and you just lock them in place. So for basically any place where you have this batting line, okay, here I messed up, I'm going in the wrong direction. So what I'm going to do is, let's go to the other side, yeah. So go other way around. And here I'm going to lock it in place. And here you can also, if I could select it, yeah, when you're selecting it, just it's kind of hard to select. When you hover over it, it doesn't allow you to select. You need to hover over the center of it. So just hover over the center, and then let's try to attach this. Yeah, now we can lock it in place. The reason why I'm locking this in place over here is just because if I move the door around, I want my insulation line to follow that door. That's pretty much the only reason. Okay, so just go to insulation and then basically go all the way around. Okay, I messed up here. It should be far side, and let's go. So go here to the end of the wall. Here at the end of the wall again, we can attach it. Okay, here I just want to attach it to this part, and if you're having trouble attaching it, you can use the align tool, just AL, you need to find this line here, find that line, lock it in place. Okay, so now it's locked to that wall. So just go all the way around. Now in this case I had to align it to this wall over here just because Revit is seeing this wall over here, and this wall is going through to this side, and then this wall is going through to here pretty much. Okay, so just continue on from this point. Okay, if you can't find it again, far side. The unfortunate thing is the fact that you really have to reset it over here, but yeah, that's what we have to do. So now let's go here up to the window. There we go. And here let's align this thing. So yeah, we're having some trouble aligning all of this, but there you go. That's what we have to do. Here, same thing. Find the window, find the line, lock it, same thing. And then you just continue all the way to the other side. Go from the window, again far side, so from the window line all the way to the end over here. So we can go here to the end, and then AL for align, and here you get the point, you align it in place and you lock it in place. And again we're going to do the same thing here for the window. Okay, so I'm just going to fast forward the rest of this. Moving on, let's take a look at the foundation of our building. So if I go into 3D and if I just orbit around a little bit, you're going to notice that we don't really have a foundation. We only have this generic floor. Now we're not going to mess around with the floor yet. Let's do the foundation first, and then we're going to be talking about the floor layers. So to do the foundation, there are a couple of different options. The first thing we need to do is we need to extend our walls beyond basically the floor plan up down to the top of foundation. Now you can do this in multiple different ways. One of the ways is just to extend this wall, but if you go here into the floor plan, we have some insulation over here. We have some of these materials that don't really need to appear down at the level of our foundation. Also, we have this finishing material, again something that we don't want to have down there. Then the next way you can do it is by going and creating stacked walls. So if I go here to architecture, go to walls, start the wall command, here we have some stacked walls. So we can create a stacked wall that's up here on the top is this wall, and then down on the bottom is some foundation wall. But that can be messy when you start moving around your levels. So maybe if you go here to south elevation and maybe you decide that you want the top of foundation to be a bit lower or a bit higher, then the stacked walls option is not really the best option because you would have to manually change that height. So the best option in my opinion is to just do another wall. So for that wall, I'm just going to go here first to let's first go to top of foundation, and it's going to look like this because it's in course. And the reason why we can still see our floor plan is because the top of foundation is only 90 centimeters below. And here if we go into view range in the properties, you're going to notice that it is cutting at 120, but that's okay. I actually want it to look like this for now. So what I'm going to do is just go here to medium level of detail just so I can see my walls in higher detail and I can actually see all of the wall layers. And now what I'm going to do is just go here to wall, and I'm going to take the existing wall that we have, the interior 22 wall, because that's the wall that I can most easily accommodate or change or adapt to create my foundation wall. So just select that one, go here into edit type, duplicate, and let's call it foundation wall. And it's going to be a 20 centimeter wall. The reason why, or just call it 20, no need for centimeters. Okay, the reason why I'm doing it as a 20 centimeter concrete wall, it's going to be concrete, is because our core level here, or our core layer, or our the structural layer of the wall is only 20 centimeters thick, so we can just continue that on. We don't have to add anything else. So for that, let's go here then to structure, and let's delete the finish layer. So just select it, delete this one, delete. And this, instead of masonry, usually you don't want to put masonry in the foundation. I usually like to do my foundations out of concrete. So let's just type in concrete. So we have our cast in place, so that's what I'm going to be using. So I'm just going to select that concrete, and here for the material, I'm not really going to mess around too much with the settings because I'm probably not going to be creating any foundation plans yet, so maybe this is something to do in the future, but for now let's leave it as is. So once we have this, I'm just going to hit OK, OK again, OK again, and here we have our foundation wall. Now for the foundation wall, you can use pick lines, you can use pick faces, you can basically use a few options, but what I like to do is I like to just first go in here and select all of the walls, all of the structural walls. So hover over one of the exterior walls, hit the tab key, and it's kind of going to chain all of these walls together. Then select this wall and this wall. So those are all of the structural walls that we have, and just make sure here in your properties that the constraint location line is set to core center line. So just make sure that it is at core center line. So the core is the structural element. Okay, so once we have that in place, let's now go to wall, and for the height of the wall, instead of unconnected, connect it to your floor plan. So now it's going to be connected there, and now just what you need to do is you need to go all around this core line. So what I'm going to do is first let's do the ones that are kind of not so obvious. So we have one running from here, but it's going all the way down through here and down to here. So we have that wall. Then we also have one wall that's kind of going from here, from this part all the way up to this part over here. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, there we go. And now we can just continue on doing the rest of the walls. Now it might not be that visible, so let's see, there's the center line. But once you finish everything, it's going to be visible once we change the settings. So let's find this here. So go from this point to that point, hit escape, then go from this point all the way to this point. Go up here. Let's see, connect it over here. Let's connect this one. There we go. And that might be it. Let's see. I'm just going to go into 3D. It's just a bit easier, so let's go and see. Okay, we just need to connect these over here, and that should be it. So go to your top of foundation, and that's this one over here, if I'm not mistaken. So just go wall, and it's usually going to keep the same settings, so you just need to connect from here to here. Okay, we have that wall, so it's not that one. Let's see, what else could it be? Oh, might be here. Let's see. Wall. Yeah, it's a bit tricky working like this, but once you get the hang of it, should work pretty well. Okay, so once we have all of this in place, all of these walls in place, now to see your foundation plan, it's just a matter of changing your view range. So just scroll down here in the properties until you find your view range, or alternatively, you can just type in VR on your keyboard and you get your view range. So our top of foundation is at minus 90 centimeters, so you just need to change this to be 90 or lower. So I'm just going to go with something like 50 centimeters, hit apply, and there we go. Now some of these families will still be visible, but yeah, we only need the actual walls. And if you don't really like having all of these families, what you can do is just kind of select all of them, maybe like this, hold the control key, select just like that, and once you have all of these families selected, you can go to filter and uncheck walls, hit apply, okay, and for these elements you can always hide them in view, so just go hide elements, and there we go. So now we only have our foundation plan. So basically our foundation plan, okay, here we have a couple of windows, let's hide these off as well. Okay, so for our foundation plan, we actually need to add the foundation. We only have our foundation walls. So if we go into 3D, it looks something like that. Now to add all of your foundation, your actual foundation, you need to go here to the structure tab, and here we have the foundation tool. So if we go here, we have our wall foundation. FT is the shortcut for this one, so you can just type in FT, and there we go. we've got our foundation. Now you've got two foundations here. You've got a retaining footing or bearing footing. So let's go with the bearing footing. Let's go into edit type just to see what we have. So the width is 90 centimeters and the thickness is 30. I'm just going to up the thickness to maybe, let's duplicate this one and let's do one at 40 for thickness, or 400 millimeters. And for the actual width, I can go with maybe 80 or 800 millimeters. Okay, with this one, let's drop this down to 80 and this one to 40. This is just a generic footing that we use in our country for most of these one-floor residential buildings. Okay, so one more thing here for the structural material, it's set to cast in place gray. That's pretty much the same material that we have here for the foundation wall, so I'm not going to be changing that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm just going to hit OK, hover over this wall, click, and there we go. We have our foundation. Hover over this one, we have foundation. So you just go all the way around, clicking on these walls. Yeah, I prefer doing this all in 3D just because it's so simple using this tool. And there we go, we have our foundation, and I'm not really going to be creating a foundation plan at this point, but the reason why I like to have foundation in my projects is because if I choose to go to maybe the floor plan, create a section running like this, create a section, and then as you can see over here we have our foundation. So I really like to have that foundation in the section. It just makes your projects look way more professional, so that's why I always include that. Now let's take a quick look at the roof of this building. So for the roof we need to set up some layers. Also we have this flat roof and then we have this sloped roof. So let's start off with the flat roof. Now I'm just going to select it and go here into edit type. And as you can see, it works pretty much the same as the walls do. So if I go here into edit, you're going to notice that here we have the thickness of the wall and then we can change it. Now before we start making any changes over here, what we need to do is cancel out of this, go and duplicate and create a new roof type. So I'm just going to duplicate this and let's just call it a flat roof. Okay, so it's called just a flat roof and hit OK, and now we can go here into structure. Now for the structure of this roof, I'm guessing it's going to be some sort of a concrete slab. So let's go with a, I don't know, something like a 16 centimeter concrete slab. So we've got that, and let's change the material here to concrete cast in place gray. Okay, so we have that material all set, and now let's start inserting the rest of the layers. So here the roof basically works the same as the wall. The exterior is of course on top and the interior is here on the bottom. Now I want to have some sort of an interior finish for this wall, so when I insert a new layer, I'm just going to move it down underneath, and let's just call this a finish layer. It's going to be just 1 centimeter thickness. It's going to be a finish material, and here for the material, I'm going to use that same gypsum wall board that I used for the walls. So our rooms will have basically the same material both on walls and on the roof or on the ceiling. Now I can do this variable option. As you can see over here, we have this. It's kind of an extra option that we didn't have with walls, and I'm going to be talking about this a bit later on, but I'm not going to check it for now. Now I'm just going to go here and insert a new layer. This one I'm just going to move up, and this is of course going to be some sort of a thermal layer. So for this one I'm going to go with some sort of an insulation material. Let's see what we have. Yeah, let's go with the foam material, same one that we used. So we have all of the graphics already set up over here. And for the roof, I can go with a bit of a thicker material, so I'm just going to go with a 20 centimeter thickness. Also here we have that variable, and that's basically for the thickness of this material. Now for now, as I said, I'm just going to leave it off, and then we're going to be playing around with that a bit later. So let's insert another layer. So this layer is going to be a membrane layer. So what that means is the thickness is 0, it stays 0, but this is going to be some sort of a water insulation material. So let's try, let's see what we have. damp proofing. Let's load that one in. Now it's already inserted, so it says, do you want to reload it? And I'm just going to cancel out of that. So I know it's called the damp proofing, so I can try to type that in over here. So let's see, damp proofing, there we go. So I can just select this, hit OK, and there we go, it's loaded in. And because it's a membrane layer, of course this will have some thickness, but it's so small in comparison with these other layers, it just usually stays at 0. So now you can insert the final layer. This is going to be kind of the final finish on top, so let's go with a finish. And here for the material, I'm just going to throw some gravel on top of this roof, so let's see. Okay, here we have gravel. Let's load that in, hit apply, okay, and there we go. And for this material, let's go with something like, I don't know, let's go with 3 centimeters. And now I'm just going to hit here OK, and there we go, we've got our new flat roof. And when I click OK, as you can see, the thickness kinda increased just a little bit because we have more layers, but there we go, now we have all of the necessary layers. And if I go here to floor plan and create perhaps another section, so let's do a section through this and open that section up, and if I go here into find a level of detail, there we go. Now we have some layers over here. Now we're going to be messing around with the section a bit later on, but of course you will add that batting line over here as well. Now let's play around with this this roof over here, this basic roof. Now this is a sloped roof, so for the sloped roof I can select it again, go here into edit type, and let's duplicate this type. Let's call it sloped roof. And I'm just going to hit OK. So now for the structure, my main structure is going to be a bit different than the other one. Now this being a sloped roof, that means it will probably have some sort of a wooden construction, and that's something that we're going to be adding in later on. But between those beams and all of those construction elements, you're going to add some insulation. So even though this is a structural layer, I'm going to make it out of insulation. So I'm just going to search for insulation. And there we go. I'm just going to go with the same foam. And for the thickness, I'm going to go with 20 centimeters, leaving enough room for our whole construction. Then I'm going to insert another layer. I'm going to move this one down, and this will be, of course, the finishing material. And it will have the same 1 centimeter thickness. And the material will be, of course, that gypsum wallboard. Okay, there we go, gypsum wallboard, and here for the function, let's just call it finish. Next, let's go over here, insert another layer. Now this layer is going to be some sort of a covering on top. Now I'm just going to call this one, let's go with substrate, and this will be a wooden material. So these are just going to be some wood planks that go over our construction and over our insulation. Just some paneling, wood paneling. So let's just search here for wood, and let's see what we get. So we have some birch wood, some oak flooring. Now that doesn't really work. Let's see what else we have. Cherry, all of these look too nice to use. Okay, so here we have some plywood sheeting. Maybe that's the best option, so I'm just going to load that one in. Okay, so we already have a plywood sheeting, so let's see, where is it? Okay, here we go, plywood sheeting, and let's open that up. And for the thickness, I'm just going to do 2 centimeters of this plywood. Then let's insert our membrane layer. So here we have our membrane layer, and that's going to be that damp proofing. So let's go. There we go. And the thickness, of course, stays at 0. And let's just insert the final finish material. So for the finishing material, we're going to use some shingles or something like that. So let's see. Yeah, let's search down here below, perhaps. Or let's try roof. Let's see what we get. Okay, here we go, some asphalt shingle. There we go, let's use this one. open it up, and there we go. And for the thickness, let's go with, I don't know, let's go with 2 centimeters. Okay, so there we go. We've got all of our layers, all of the functions are set up properly, all of the materials are proper, and here for the variability, in the last one we didn't set it up because that's something that we're going to be talking about a bit later, but for a sloped roof, that's something that's always going to be turned off. So just make sure that none of these are turned on, and just hit OK, and there we go. Hit OK again, and here we go. We have all of the layers. Now here you may notice that we have a bit of an issue over here. Here the wall looks good, and on the other side as well, but here this wall doesn't really look the way it should. So if I select this wall, you're going to notice that it's still set up to that basic generic wall 300mm type, and I didn't change it because I was in the floor plan, and in the floor plan I really can't see the roof level, so I didn't get the chance to change this wall. So now that I saw it in the section, I'm just going to go here in the properties, and let's just change that to wall exterior. Now once I finish this, as you can see, it's oriented the wrong way. The insulation should be on the outside, so I'm just going to go here to the roof level, find that wall, spin it on the other side, go back into my section, and there we go. It looks good again. Okay, so we have that all set up. Now let's just talk about this this floor over here that we have. Now if I go here to the floor plan, you're going to notice that we just used one simple floor for everything, and this isn't usually how you would approach this subject, so let's create a few of these. So we need to have a few of these different floors, because we need different floors at different parts of our house. So what I'm going to be doing is just creating 3 different floor types. So we need one floor for pretty much the whole interior of the house. Then we need another type of the floor for all of these wet rooms. So that's your toilet, that's your kitchen, the second toilet, as well as the garage. So that's just should be kind of waterproof. And then we have a third type for the exterior of the house, so just the floor that's going all around. Okay, so let's start creating those types. So first, let's do the main type. So that's just going to be the main floor. And here I'm going to go just into edit type, duplicate this one, and go and call it main floor. Okay, so this one's the main floor. Hit OK, go into structure, and here in the structure for the thickness of the structural material, I'm going to go with 20 centimeter thickness. And let's go with a cast in place concrete. Okay, here we go, cast in place. Okay, so we have that one, and now let's insert another material. So for this one, I'm going to go with some sort of a membrane layer, just so we have some sort of insulation from the ground and all of the waters and everything. So for this one, let's go and let's do that damp proofing. There we go. And for the thickness, leave it at 0. Then I'm going to insert another layer. So this one will be a thermal air layer, and let's go with 20 centimeter thickness because we want to have a lot of insulation from the ground. And let's search for that insulation material. There we go. Let's go with the foam material. Okay, so let's insert another material. So this one will be some sort of a substrate above this, just to make add some rigidity. So for that, let's go with a bit more concrete. Okay, so let's go with cast in place gray, and for thickness, let's go with something like 4 centimeters. And of course, let's add just a finishing material. So the finishing material is going to be some sort of a wood flooring. So let's search for wood floor, or let's try floor. Okay, we have oak flooring. That sounds good. So I'm just going to go with that. And for thickness, let's go with 3 centimeters. And again, the variability is going to be checked off, and the structure is only going to be checked over here at structural material. Okay, so here, let's just hit OK. And there we go. We have our main floor. Now, the default thickness of this floor is 37 centimeters, and just keep that in mind because you want to have the same thickness for your floor that is your main floor and all of your bathroom floors. So for the bathroom floor, let's duplicate this one, so the main floor, and let's call this one wet floor, just to emphasize the fact that this is a waterproof floor. So just go here into structure, and we're just going to be changing the finishing material to some sort of tile. So let's search for tile. Okay, we have some ceramic tile. And what's good about this tile is here for our surface pattern, it already has 250 millimeter squares. Now you can change that. There are smaller ones. I just prefer using these big ones, so let's leave it at that. So that's nice. And here it has some sort of a cut pattern, but that's not really that important at this point. So just go OK, and there we go. Hit OK, OK again, and there we go. Now the reason it changed the whole thing is because we didn't really change and create any changes to the actual floor of the house, but don't worry, we're going to be doing that a bit later. Now let's just do the final material, and that's the outside floor. So let's go here into edit type, duplicate, and call this one outside floor, or exterior floor, maybe better. Okay, exterior floor, let's go with OK. And for structure, it's going to be really simple. It's just going to have a 10 centimeter concrete structure, and I'm just going to delete this layer, delete the thermal layer, delete the substrate layer, and just for the finish, I'm going to go with some wood. There's that wood cladding material. It looks really nice, so I'm just going to use that. I know that's probably not what's used for the floor, but I like the appearance of it, so that's what I'm going to be using. So let's go with wood, and let's search for that material. Okay, this siding, yeah, that's what I like to use, and I'm just going to give it a surface pattern that's going to be a bit of this beige color. There we go, something like that. And I'm just going to use some sort of a hatch. Let's see what we have. Yeah, let's go with 1.5 millimeter hatch. There we go. Hit apply. Okay. And now we have some sort of appearance. And let's just hit OK. OK again. And there we go. It's going to look kind of like that. Okay, now it's just the question of dividing this floor. So to divide the floor, let's go here and let's first switch it to our main floor. Go into edit boundary, and now for the boundary of this floor, I'm going to try to place it over here in the center at the structural material. So where the structural material stops and the insulation continues. So try to move it at that point, so here it works correctly. You can always lock it in place, so when you move around your walls, your floor will move along with it. So if that's something you would like to do, you can. I'm just not going to bother that much with this one. Okay, this one works. Yeah, I can leave it here. Okay, let's move this inward. So this is, so again, you're only placing the wall that's actually, the floor that's actually inside of the house. So you need to move this line in, move this line in. Let's see, there we go. And for this one, because we have this, now we're going to be just be using pick lines. So let's see, let's tab into this line. There we go. Tab into this line, and tab, just hitting the tab key a few times. There we go, and this one as well. Okay, and now I just suggest you go with the trim and extend tool. Just type in TR. There we go. And just like that. And now you can finish your floor. But wait a second, before you finish the floor, you need to add gaps where you're going to have your wet floor. So I'm going to have my wet floor here in the side of this bathroom over here. So there. Again, you can lock it in place to all of these interior walls if you want. Next thing, I'm going to have it inside of the kitchen. So maybe go like this. There we go. Again, you can lock it inside of those walls, so it moves around with the walls. And I'm going to have one that connects both the garage as well as this here bathroom. So let's do one over there. And let's lock even these in place. Okay, so I think we have it at all places where we need it. Yeah, and let's just finish this off. Now you're going to have this option, and I just suggest you don't attach this at this point, so I'm just going to hit no. Okay, so we have this regular floor in place. Now let's go to architecture, let's go to floor, And now let's switch to wet floor. And for the wet floor, let's go with rectangles and just place it at those places where we've left the gap in the previous one. So do one here, and again, you can lock it in place. So once you make any additional changes to these, the floors will follow. Let's do one here. Again, you can lock it, and one in the garage. There we go. Alternatively, you can have some maybe here at the entrance, but for now, let's leave it at this. Let's lock it so nobody complains because I didn't lock it, and there we go. Just hit finish. Again, you're going to have this warning. I'm just going to hit no, and there we go. Look, this is what's better about this type of layout is now we get, or using these floors, is the fact that now we have this different type of material here in the bathroom and everywhere else where we used this floor. Now, a part about this that I don't like is because it's a bit too dark. These lines are too dark, and when we turn off thin lines, it looks way too pronounced. So I'm just going to zoom out a bit, select this floor, go into edit type, go here into edit, find the finish material, go into editing the material, and here I suggest you change this to something like this, some gray color. There we go. Hit apply, okay, okay again, apply, okay. And there we go. As you can see, it looks a lot better now when it's grayed out a bit because it's not too intrusive at the whole model. And here, if I go into the detail, as you can see here, we have this different floor. Now, you're going to get these ugly lines, and we're going to be talking about that a bit more later on. But the fact is, you can always go to modify, join, and there we go. Now it's one straight floor, but here we have a different finish material. If we go into thin lines, you can see this finish material is different than this finish material. Okay, so that's for the floor, and it looks really nice. And let's just do the exterior floors. So I'm just going to go here to architecture, go into our floors, and let's go with, maybe go with straight lines. So one floor should be going here, kind of like this, all the way around the house, ending up over here. So let's end it over here maybe, and then we're going to be adding a different perhaps material for the path later on. So this looks nice. Yeah, let's go like this. Here, this distance should be smaller. Let's go with 80 centimeters. That's just a bit of a trail around the house. Or actually, maybe move this in. Let's remove that constraint. Yeah, I prefer this to be smaller. Maybe 140. Yeah, let's leave it at 140. Okay, so now here, I'm just going to go again to that inside line. So just go here. So where I stopped the last floor, that's where I'm going to be starting this floor. Okay, here I missed a little bit, so just, yeah, better use pick lines for this kind of stuff. So just go, hit the tab key a few times, and then you select. Again here, hit the tab key a few times, and then select. And again, you can lock it in place so it moves around with the wall if you decide to make changes to the wall. Tab, there we go. Tab a few times. Tab a few times, and one more time, and there we go. Now just go to trim and extend. So here's the command, or use the shortcut as I do. TR is the shortcut, and there we go. We're finishing it off. So just continue this. There we go. I think it's completed. So let's zoom out. Let's see. Nope. And there we go. Now I accidentally left it at the wet floor, so what I'm going to do is just select it and switch it to our exterior floor. And there we go. Now we have that exterior lines for the exterior floor, and it looks really good. So there we go. We've set up our floors, and when we print this, it's actually going to look really good. So when we zoom in, as you can see, we have different floor finishes here for the living area, for the kitchen, and here for the exterior area of the house. Okay, so that's going to conclude the video for this week, so this week's course, and next week we're going to be continuing on playing around with sections and much more. So we've learned how to set up all of the walls so they look nice. We did the floors, we did the roof, and we did all of those little details that make the whole thing look perfect. And of course, let's just save the project, and there we go. So that's pretty much it for this week's course. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you with a continuation of this course next week. Bye.